Round 3 here on Beyond the Cage, presented by Intimidation Clothing. Inside of round number 3, brought to you by our good friends at MMAforlife.ca. Follow them on Twitter at _MMA4Life. We have a very special guest joining us. He is UFC fighter Brian Ebersole. Brian, thanks for joining us here on Beyond the Cage.
You're welcome. You guys should have had me on for round 1. We could have finished. Instead of dragging it out for 10, 15 minutes. It's a long time.
And Brian, we're having you on to talk about your upcoming fight at UFC 167 against Rick Story. And first thing we got to ask you is, as some of our listeners may know, you train over in Thailand with your Team Tiger Muay Thai. And what have you been up to with your Team Tiger Muay Thai over there in Thailand these past couple of months?
Winning. Yeah, the boys out here, the 4 that we had on full scholarship, have went 10 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and 1 no contest. So we've had a pretty well-rounded year, but a wholly successful one as far as competition goes.
And in this past year, of course, you've had some injury problems that taking you out of potential fights in the UFC. And what have you been able to do in the past year to get yourself healed to sign a fight like taking on Rick Story?
Lay down and try to stay out of like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th gear pretty much. It's been a bit of a frustrating process. I've never really had a major injury. So, to be limited was tough. I mean, I re-aggravated it a time or two just getting on the mat, being feisty on a day, when maybe it was an ill-advised situation to jump into. But in the end, I've wrestled my whole life, and it's kind of hard to stay off the mat. But I was able to stay off the mat long enough and let myself rest and recover. And I'm managing fairly well right now. Besides the obvious physical pain of being hurt, what has been the toughest part of this layoff for you? I mean, I don't want to say I'm an attention seeker or anything, and act like being out of the spotlight is hard, but just watching, I guess, time tick away when I finally got to the UFC, and I'd waited that long to get there, and worked that long to get there, and I don't know, I don't feel this way yet, maybe in reflection, depending on how the future plays out, but you just don't want to have that window of opportunity close too quick. Whatever too quick is obviously up to your own judgment, but I mean, I just wanted to be able to take advantage of this time, this very short time, and do the best I could with it. So hopefully my body and Dana and Joe Silva and all those kind of factors that I don't control, hopefully they allow me to play.
We are talking with Brian Ebersole here on Beyond the Cage, presented by Intimidation Clothing. Check him out on his official website, brianebersole.com. And Brian, are there any takeaways, or are there anything that you could take away from this experience of being out for over a year?
I guess like the couple things that I've really noticed is watching fights without being like emotionally involved is a little bit different, in the sense that I wasn't worried about, I'm going to fight that guy next, or I could fight that guy next. So just appreciating other people's skill sets and styles, and kind of being a fan again is kind of neat, because I've met a lot of these guys, and some of them rub you the wrong way. Other ones, kind of endear you to them, and you want to root for them. So I've been really able to be a fan, even in my own division, and watch. And the learning process is a lot different, too, when you're watching more than doing. You watch other people's mistakes, whether it's they try to drill a new move, too quickly, or they're very eager to try to finish like a new submission instead of really just worried about positions. So I've kind of been able to assess training. I've been able to reflect over my own game and my own strengths and weaknesses because I coach. So on a daily basis, I've got to try to explain the principles behind the moves that I do and that I teach. So, it's been a quite an interesting time and full of martial arts and knowledge for me. But boy, is there that little burn to go out and just, race the Corvette, get this thing back on the track. And, that's been a bit frustrating.
Having fought 67 times professionally in mixed martial arts, has there been a time that you were 100% leading up into a fight?
It's been a while, but yeah, most of the time. It's only this last little while that I've been banged up. Chris Lido was the last fight I was healthy for. And yeah, I felt amazing going into that fight. In most fights previous to that, I had a niggling injury when I fought Hector Lombard in Australia, but it didn't really hold me back too much. And yeah, I mean, the last time I really hurt myself was way back before I moved to California. So yeah, I've had a pretty fortunate career.
I can't believe you said it was just that short ago. I was thinking back in high school, but you were going to say that was the last time you were really 100%.
Oh, no. I've had a pretty good MMA run.
Good.
Yeah. So that makes this all the more frustrating in a sense, but on the other side, I got to look at it and say, well, you know, I had 60-some fights with very, very little problems, so can't really complain about the one problem that comes up 13, 14 years into a career.
Looking at your last fight that you did compete in the UFC, that was against James Head, and I know, like you said, you were able to reflect and go over some things in this layoff. Is there anything maybe specific that you could take away from the fight against James Head, or is it just simply because of the layoff and because of the injury, you maybe couldn't take anything away from that fight?
Really, that fight, the one thing to take away from is just the importance of the mental aspect. A little bit of that peacocking and kind of presenting, because body language speaks, volumes. And, I know if I'd have stood instead of shooting double legs and just stood there, whether I landed a punch or a kick or not, he wasn't hitting me. And I'd done enough, I think, to win the fight, with positions and stuff like that when we did grapple. And my striking, obviously, when we did. But long story short, just making a story of a fight, that's what judges look at. They don't really sit there and count how many strikes landed. They don't pay attention to how long one guy spent on top compared to the other. They don't take notes when they judge. They just sit there blindly and watch and hang out and sip on water and then, write down a 10 or a 9. So you have to really tell the judges a good story. And in my career, I've been very, very aware of that, and I'm pretty decent at it, but I have lost my fair share of split decisions, most of those being in other people's hometowns. But yeah, I mean, you really got to go out and I guess kind of act a little bit and act like you're winning. In that fight, I just kind of cruised and did what was comfortable, and it came back and bit me in the ass, even though I took no damage. And yeah, thought I had a decent enough scoring run in the first couple rounds to win the fight.
Brian, I promise we're going to get to the Rick Story fight, but there's a couple other things since it's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yes. Okay, this fight against Rick Story, you're going to be fighting at welterweight 170. You've mentioned before going down to 155. Win or lose, is that still an option?
As long as I stay out of the U.S. for, most of the year, I'm pretty sure I can control my weight. It's just spending time in the U.S. that ruins me, because the food supply in the U.S. is absolute rubbish.
Yes, I would agree.
Things aren't chicken, and cows are unhappy, and factories are overrun with bacteria and feces. And it's a pretty sad situation, but I don't want to get into that in major detail. But yeah, I'd like to get down to 155. I think I'd be a very imposing figure at that weight.
Yeah, they're having a hard time finding a title contender. They just added Josh Thompson to fight Anthony Pettis, so maybe it could be Brian Ebersole right after Josh Thompson.
Nice.
So UFC 167 is where your fight's going to take place. The UFC's 20th anniversary show. You feel honored, privileged to be a part of that show? Yes,
both profoundly. It's kind of a cool little thing. I don't know how much marketing they're going to put to that later on. You hear things like the 10th Super Bowl and a signed football from, the 25th anniversary of this or that or the other, become big collector's items, and they do DVD specials and hardbound books and all that stuff. I don't know what the UFC's got planned as far as marketing and all that of the 20th anniversary itself. But the card that they have announced is full of former champions and legends. And most of, actually all of those fights have major implications on the top of the division. So it's going to be a pretty cool card to fight on, and also, again, sneaking that word in, I'm going to be a bit of a fan that night.
Yes. We'll have to ask our guest in the next round. We got Jeremy from the Tops Sports Card Company coming on. Maybe they got something planned for the mats, the gloves, and everything from the 20th anniversary. Maybe you'll be something special in the next Top series.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea, would it?
Yeah, maybe I'm on to something. I just got myself a job with Tops.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to your fight, I hear that you've got a new Punch Buddy inspired T-shirt for sale. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I do. I had the guys that run Punch Buddies, Stephan Bonner's company. They had, I guess, some sort of agreement with UFC as far as likenesses and artwork and all that stuff. And they'd made a decent batch of kind of Cabbage Patch, kids and Garbage Pail. Was it the Garbage Pail Buddies or something way back in the day?
Yep, Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, the Garbage Pail Kids. So they kind of did a spoof of all that with the UFC guys, and I had them do me a design, and they were gracious enough to allow me to print my own shirts off of that design. So I got a quality printer out here in Thailand, and I've done a couple runs of shirts. And Dave, as you know, there's some shirts sitting in the USA, and they're slightly funny. If you want to look at them, jump on my Facebook page, which is simply Brian Ebersole. I think I got 20 or 30,000 people that like that page, so it's definitely not one of the friends pages. But yeah, search on that, find it, and I think it's one of the top posts. I think I stuck it to the top. So $20 T-shirts. Don't see those very often anymore. Yeah,
they're pretty awesome. I definitely get a few looks around town when I wear it. People are like, that is an Ebersole shirt. That's pretty cool. So it's pretty entertaining stuff.
I tell all the Australians that it's a conversation starter.
When everybody who's listening sees the photo, yes, they'll see exactly what we're talking about. But finally, the time has come. We can talk about your fight. Fight Rick Story, UFC 167. What excites you about the challenges that Story is going to set forth? Do those challenges, is that the reason that you signed on to fight Rick Story?
I signed on to fight Rick Story because they told me to.
All right. Well, that's an easy answer to that question.
and act like there was any other reason than I took that fight. Joe Silva sent it, and I said yes, sir, and paperwork showed up 3 days later. So, it's a good fight. He's coming off of a split decision loss, as am I. And he's a pretty damn good wrestler, as am I, and he hits hard, and I'm not sure if I hit hard, but I know I do okay on my feet. So, yeah, it's gonna be a tough fight. I don't know how I'm really to win this one, other than, maybe after the first round I can answer that question and let you know somewhere in the corner in that minute where I think I've got the advantage. But
we can come up with some sort of hand signal, and you can just flash it, and then I'll know.
Yeah. Give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on up or take them down.
So if it's a thumbs down, I can go to the bathroom because the next 2 rounds aren't going to be great. Is that what you're telling me?
No. It'll be a ground battle.
Yeah. Oh, I gotcha. Hey, I have a follow-up that I've always wondered, and I don't know if you're giving away a trade secret here. You just said that the reason that you're fighting Rick Story is because Joe Silva asked you, and you said yes, and then he sent the paperwork. I just wanted to know, is it really that simple that, you get a nice email from Joe Silva that says, hey, Brian, would you like to fight Rick Story? And then when you say yeah, a contract shows up? Or is it...
I don't get the full email. I get Rick Story, UFC 167, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's what I get. Literally. There's no hello, Brian. There's no do you want. There's no punctuation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You know how you write an address on an envelope?
Yes.
That's how it comes. UFC 167, V, Rick Story, and then underneath that, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Is there like a box to check for yes or no?
It should be like that. It should be like a little ballot. But no, I just wrote back, yes, sir, and that's it. Thank you. And then someone else sends me paperwork, and I deal with that person on the legalities, and then I get another email from the lady that handles flights and accommodation, and then we start doing that. And then I have to do all the sponsor stuff, and then they make me pee in a cup, and then they tell me I can't bring anything into the locker room, and then they tell me this guy's going to try to punch me in the face, so I start looking for my headgear, and then they tell me I'm the next big thing because I'm 5-1, and then I get to talk to Ariel Helwani, and then I get to go eat like the biggest burger in Vegas. That's typical fight weekend, except they're not always in Vegas.
Speaking of Vegas, Brian, this will be the first time you'll be fighting in Las Vegas in over 10 years. Are you excited to get back there and fight?
Absolutely. I'm so excited. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of putting out an open invite. I've done this Ultimate Fight Tour thing once in Vegas and once in Queensland, Australia. And funny enough, the November and December shows, I'm going to do an Ultimate Fight Tour in both of those cities as well. So for this one, I'm going to have some family and friends, obviously my camp and coaches out there. But I'm going to open up the seating where, Dave, just so you know, you might have some rabid Ebersole fans sitting next to you because it's going to be in that section of the arena, I hope. We're going to secure tickets again.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm going to put an open invite out. I'm going to put a small package together so people can get a behind-the-scenes kind of experience. One, of the UFC, and then two, obviously, a bit of Vegas. So we'll put together like maybe 3 to 5 kind of coordinated events on the schedule over the course of 2 to 3 days. And once we tailor that in, we're going to obviously poster it up and plaster it all over the internet and see who wants to come out and have a good time with the Herrera.
Yeah, you'll have to come back on the show and give us all the details.
Yeah. So you by proxy kind of get invited into half of that stuff, Dave.
Woohoo!
But yeah, I'm gonna have tickets set aside for folks, and we'll do like a post weigh-in dinner, after party, and then probably something the day after the fights. Yeah, maybe throwing a training session or a poker game in somewhere.
Jim can attest to it. I'm not coming all the way to Vegas to train because I got to get back on the airplane, and I don't need to be in traction or anything.
Last time you trained with me, I didn't hurt you.
Okay, that's sort of true. It's sort of not true.
I brought you within an inch of like a concussion.
For all of our fans who are listening, if you're watching The Ultimate Fighter, they show that video of Ronda like hip tossing that chick. This is the first day that I've ever put shorts on, and Brian's like, "Hey, I'm going to show you how to do this." Apparently, I put off the image that I'm some sort of mixed martial artist. Brian's like, "Here, hip toss, wham!" And I'm laying on the ground like, that felt great.
Jim Graham and Dave Sadler here on Beyond the Cage, presented by Intimidation Clothing, talking with UFC fighter Brian Ebersole. Follow him on Twitter at @TwazEbersole. And Brian, on the card, you're fighting 167 against Rick Story. Your division, the welterweight division, a new champion may be crowned, as George St. Pierre will take on Johnny Hendricks for the main event. And I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that title fight between Hendricks and GSP.
I've got a thought on it. GSP stole one of my damn Thai trainers again. The guy's over in Canada holding mitts for him, and I'm freaking struggling for work over here. That's what I think. So I think GSP's in just fine stead to go ahead and keep his title because he's got some of the best training on earth. Master Yad is over there, and Mr. Lam Sukram is heading over there in a couple days from what I can tell. So I'm trying to soak up the last bit of knowledge I can from him before he goes and gives all his energy to the champ. Not that I'm sad about it or anything, but this is like the third time he's done this to me this year. And, so now I'm going to have to go find some second-rate Thai trainer and work on some wrestling and hope that's good enough.
Now, one of the things we wanted to hit on with you is, obviously, you do a lot of training and living out there in Thailand. You also spend a lot of time in Australia, and I know Dave wants to know this, and I think maybe some of our listeners want to know this. When will you be back in the United States, and specifically the Midwest around the Chicago, Illinois area?
I'm going to spend my birthday and Thanksgiving and Christmas all through the Midwest. So the only little break I might have is I might have to fly over to the ONE FC to corner Roger Herrera in a December fight. But other than that couple-day break, I will be wholly invested in the Illinois scene, and hope to get in a bit of training and follow up on this fight and keep fit, because I don't want to get up to 210 pounds again. That's a long way from lightweight.
Speaking of Roger Herrera, just real quickly, he joined your team, Tiger Muay Thai, there not too long ago. And what's it been like training with Roger?
Having another wrestler has been amazing. And Roger was a very high-level wrestler. He was a college wrestler at Augsburg College. And they had one heck of a Division III program, that actually was very revered even among the Division I guys, you know. So they would wrestle the likes of the Iowas and the Indianas and Purdue, Northwestern, and they were very competitive. So he sat behind a very talented kid. I think Marcus Lavasser was his name, and he was kind of the Mikhail Sanderson of his division, you know, in Division III. He went like 155-0 through college, and was just a freak. So having Roger's depth of knowledge and skill, because he's a different wrestler than I. We have different styles and different strengths. It reinforces a lot of the stuff that, you know, I've seen in my life. I just was never that great at. And we complement each other fairly well, and we both take a different philosophy even towards the way we compete. So seeing the things that he does well with a skill set that's similar to mine inspires me a little bit to try new things, and I think vice versa. So yeah, it's been quite a pleasure. We play off of each other quite well and have some pretty lighthearted moments when we're coaching and talking and demonstrating. So it turns into a bit of a Broadway play every now and again. And we get dramatic and goofy, but yeah.
Speaking of wrestling, are you happy that the wrestling's sticking around the Olympics?
Yes. I was not exactly on the front lines of the protest there. I mean, I did share and tweet and you know whatnot, but I wasn't digging for, you know, the what's, how's, and why's, and when the vote. Well, I didn't even know when the vote was. It was last week, is what I can tell from my Facebook account and my Twitter account. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a relief. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that really, you know, how do you say, thrive given those high opportunities, those big opportunities. So to take away like the top of our pyramid is really just gonna, you know, kind of degrade the base of our sport. You know,
right.
Less people are going to want to play. You're going to see college kids start to drop off and go do other things without that dream there. And then, you know, MMA's really been a beneficiary of American wrestling. So to have the wrestling fall off, obviously the next generation of MMA athletes is going to come up a little bit deficient in that area. So yeah, I mean, Olympics in itself is an emotional payoff. There's not much financial there for you. I mean, we pay our way to go compete as amateur wrestlers. We don't get paid to do any of this, and sponsorships very hard to come by. I wouldn't even think, you know, Jordan Burroughs, who's our most high-profile dominant wrestler of the recent era, I don't think he's really making 50, 60, 70 grand a year as a wrestler. But he's sure paying $2,000 and $3,000 plane tickets every now and again to travel the world and compete. So yeah, it's one of those things you take away that emotional reward. I think a lot of people are going to say, what am I doing all this hard work for? You know,
right.
Like practically there's no other reason to do it other than, you know, a drive and a love and a hope for, you know, that glory of being able to represent your country or, you know, go to a World Games and you know, be on the American team. Well, if there's no American team, it's not that fun.
Yeah, pretty pointless.
Yeah, I mean, to get pounded on every day for what, you know? So I just don't know how far people would chase the dream, would chase the sport, and would really immerse in in the art of wrestling if there weren't, I guess, at least that carrot dangling.
Before we get you out of here, Brian, we got to ask about your sponsors for this fight and anything else you got planned for your fight leading up into UFC 167.
Just cartwheeling the best I can out here in Thailand and trying to get by. Want to show up to my fight obviously happy and healthy, and coming off of an injury, it's obviously a major burden mentally, trying to make sure I keep myself within the proper parameters of training and don't do anything too silly. But yeah, I've got a lot of people willing to help me out with that. I got a great staff around me out here at Tiger. Like I said, 2 of my trainers are heading off to help GSP train. We still got 26, 27 champions out here on a daily basis. We got Roger Herrera as my wrestling coach. I got a Brazilian top team black belt out here from Brazil, Fernando Macachero, who's been a great assist. Stuart Cooper Films, besides being an amazing film guy, he's done a lot of really cool promotional work for Tiger and myself. He just finished a 20-minute mini documentary that's going to release the next week or 3, depending on what they want to do here at Tiger with my fight and trying to spin some media there. I guess they're going to determine the release date on that, not me. But he's also a brown belt from England and an amazing training partner. So I've got a very, very good group of people around me. And then on the outside of things, Century Martial Arts sent me a couple pairs of UFC fight gloves so I could train in them. So that was very cool of them. I'm going to re-sign a long-term deal with Hayabusa Fightwear. They've been by me ever since I fought Carlos Newton back in Australia in 2010. And just a quick plug, I haven't broken any of their equipment yet, so the stuff's pretty durable because I'm training consistently. Sure. And FundaFighter. FundaFighter is a company that's come along, and they help athletes fund their training camp for big fights. And it's not just a charity kind of situation. We actually offer something to these people, and it's either sold or auctioned off at FundaFighter's leisure. So just a quick one. I'm going to drop this now. First public announcement of said plan. FundaFighter is going to sell/auction a UFC 167 cornerman's pass for my corner in Las Vegas. So I will have, potentially I will have a random ass person in my locker room, my corner. Or Dave.
Yeah. I'm already on FundaFighter.com. How weird is that?
Yeah. So that campaign's going to get launched, I think, next week. I'm about to do a fun little video here at Tiger Muay Thai, announcing the campaign. And then, FundaFighters, it's kind of their job to do all this. They're going to release the information on how to go about being involved in purchasing and bidding in the auctions. So that's going to be a bit of a fun one, but 2, it's going to be a real big help to my training camp because I'm going to have to spend some time overseas, not in Thailand. I'm going to have to go to the U.S. And spend time training, and there's every chance I grab an American wrestler and pluck him out of his situation in the U.S. and fly him out here to Thailand for a couple of weeks. So it's going to be a bit of an expensive training camp, and they're really helping me and trying to help me defer some of those costs.
Well, that is awesome, Brian, and once again, thanks for coming on the show. Dave and I really appreciate it, and we'll hope to have you on maybe after a fight and hopefully another victory for you.
Absolutely. I hope so, too. Hope we have something fun to talk about in November. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
No problem. Once again, he is Brian Ebersole. Check him out on his official website, brianebersole.com. I am Jim Graham with Dave Sadler, and thanks for listening to our interview with Brian Ebersole right here on Beyond the Cage, presented by Intimidation Clothing.